There's a voice that once shook the soul of an entire generation, a falsetto so pure, so unmistakably unique that when you heard it, you knew exactly who it was. Philippe Wynne, the man behind the spinner's greatest hits, the voice that made grown adults weep, the performer who collapsed on stage and never got back up. But before that tragic Friday the 13th in 1984, before the sold-out shows and the #1 records, there was a little boy abandoned in an orphanage, knowing both his parents were still alive. If stories of forgotten legends inspire you, don't forget to like and subscribe to Legends Underrated, because Felipe's journey from orphan to icon is one you won't believe. April 3rd, 1941, Cincinnati, Ohio. A baby boy enters the world as Philippe Walker, but he won't carry that name for long. His childhood is filled with gospel music, church hymns, and family harmonies alongside his brother and 2 sisters. His grandparents are deeply rooted in church tradition, and music flows through the household like scripture. But in 1947, everything shatters. His mother, Anna, runs off to Detroit with another man, abandoning her children and husband. The divorce is swift. His father, Degree Walker, wins full custody, but there's a problem. Degree is a contractor, a construction worker whose job demands constant travel, constant absence. 4 children need stability, need care, need a home. And so, in a decision that will haunt Philippe for the rest of his life, Degree makes a choice. He places Philippe, his brother Michael, and his 2 sisters into the new orphanage asylum for colored children. Imagine that. Both of your parents alive, breathing, walking the earth, and yet you're living in an orphanage. Philippe would later say that was the hardest part. Not the absence, not the poverty, but knowing they were out there, living their lives while he was locked away. 5 years pass. 5 long years of institutional life, of cold beds and colder goodbyes. And then Philippe and Michael decide they've had enough. They run. Michael heads straight to Detroit to find their mother. But Philippe, he stays in Cincinnati, returns to his father for a while, bounces between family members, takes whatever jobs he can find. At 15 years old, most kids are worried about homework and high school dances. Philippe Walker is worried about survival. And that's when he does something bold, something desperate, something that will change his trajectory forever. He walks into a military recruitment office and lies. He's not 18, he's 15, but somehow, some way they believe him. They take him in. For the next 7 years, Philippe serves his country, infantry, artillery, medical specialist. He earns his GED. He learns discipline. But more importantly, he discovers 2 passions that will define him: boxing and singing. During his service, he meets a young soul singer named Otis Redding and actually performs with Otis Redding's band. Can you imagine? A teenager in the military, moonlighting as a backup singer for one of the greatest voices in soul history. That's where the dream begins. That's where Philippe realizes his true calling isn't in the barracks. It's on the stage. After 7 years of service, Philippe leaves the military and reunites with his brother Michael in Detroit. Together, they form a gospel group called the Walker Singers. It's a return to their roots, to the church music of their childhood. But gospel doesn't pay the bills, not like secular music does, so Philippe makes a calculated decision. He leaves gospel behind, heads back to Cincinnati, and dives headfirst into rhythm and blues. And that's when he makes another change. He drops his father's last name, Walker, and adopts his mother's maiden name, Wynne. But he doesn't just take it. He adds an E to the end, transforming Wynne into Wynne, a new name, a new identity, a new beginning. In Cincinnati, he crosses paths with 2 brothers who are about to become legends themselves, Bootsy Collins and his brother Catfish. They've just started a group called the Pacemakers, and they need a lead singer. Philippe auditions. They're blown away. He's in. With Bootsy and the Pacemakers, Philippe finds himself at King Record Studio in Cincinnati, the same studio where James Brown is cutting tracks. The godfather of soul takes notice. He gets them a gig as the house band, playing backing sessions for various artists. They tour with Hank Ballard and Marvelettes. And then, one day, the phone rings. It's an emergency. James Brown's band has quit. Maceo Parker and the entire crew walked out. James needs a replacement immediately. He calls the Pacemakers. They become the JBs, and just like that, Philippe Wynne is playing behind one of the most iconic voices in music history. They record Sex Machine, Superbad, Soul Power, hits that will define an era. But working with James Brown is no walk in the park. The man is a perfectionist, a tyrant, a genius who demands nothing less than flawless execution. Miss a note, you get fined. Show up late, you get fined. James even starts accusing Bootsy of drug use despite Bootsy being clean. The pressure becomes unbearable. So they quit. They leave the godfather of soul behind and head back to Cincinnati. Felipe, meanwhile, gets an offer to sing lead for a group called the Afro Kings in Germany. He takes it, but while he's overseas, another opportunity emerges, one that will define the rest of his life. The Detroit Spinners are in crisis. They've just scored their first major hit with Motown Records in 1970. It's a shame. You know the song, written and produced by Stevie Wonder and Sarita Wright? It's a masterpiece. But their lead singer, G.C. Cameron, has decided to go solo. He's also having an affair with Gwen Gordy, Berry Gordy's sister, so he's staying with Motown. The Spinners, however, are leaving. Berry Gordy has lost interest in them, focusing his energy on the Supremes, the Temptations, Marvin Gaye. Aretha Franklin encourages the Spinners to sign with Atlantic Records, where there are no major male vocal groups. They make the leap, but they need a new lead singer. G.C. Cameron recommends his cousin, Philippe Wynne. Even Eddie Kendricks of the Temptations vouches for him, telling the Spinners they'd be crazy not to hire Philippe. Stories like these are why I built Legends Underrated, so make sure to subscribe for more untold tales like this one. The Spinners also want Bootsy and Catfish to join as their backing band, but the Collins brothers choose a different path. They join George Clinton's Parliament Funkadelic instead, chasing that funk sound they love. Felipe stays with the Spinners, and that's when everything changes. Atlantic Records pairs the Spinners with super producer Tom Bell, the architect of the Philly soul sound. Tom brings in one of the most gifted songwriters of all time, the late Linda Creed. Together, they craft magic. In April 1973, the Spinners released their self-titled debut album. It hits #1 on the Billboard Top Soul LPs chart. 3 singles reach #1. I'll Be Around, led by Bobby Smith, spends 5 weeks at the top and sells over 1 million copies. Could It Be I'm Falling in Love, featuring both Bobby Smith and Philippe Wynne, hits #1 on the R&B charts and #4 on the pop charts, another million seller. One-of-a-kind love affair dominates for 4 weeks and goes gold. The world is watching. The world is listening. And Philippe Wynne's voice is front and center. In March 1974, they release Mighty Love. The title track spends 2 weeks at #1. Love Don't Love Nobody becomes a quiet storm classic playing on late-night radio for decades. That same year, the Spinners travel to Africa to perform at the Rumble in the Jungle concert, the legendary fight between Muhammad Ali and George Foreman. There's even footage of Felipe and Ali playfully sparring, throwing punches, laughing, Felipe's military boxing training coming full circle. In late 1974, they released New and Improved, featuring Then Came You with Dionne Warwick. It hits #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Incredibly, it's Dionne Warwick's first ever #1 single. But the song that truly cements Felipe's legacy, Sadie. When Felipe sings lead on Sadie, something magical happens. The crowd loses their minds. His voice, that falsetto, that unique delivery, nobody sounds like him. Nobody can replicate it. It's a classic, forever. The hits keep coming. Games People Play in 1975. The Rubber Band Man in 1976, which spends 3 weeks at #2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and is later ranked #70 on Detroit's 100 Greatest Songs list. Felipe sings lead on that one too. The Spinners are on top of the world, but success has a dark side. Behind the scenes, people start whispering in Felipe's ear. You're the star. You should be the face of the group. You should go solo. It's the same poison that infected Diana Ross and the Supremes. The same poison that destroyed David Ruffin and the Temptations. And now it's seeping into Felipe's mind. After the success of Happiness Is Being with the Spinners, Felipe makes a demand. He wants the group to change their name to Philippe Wynne and the Spinners, or he's leaving. The other members beg him to reconsider. They try to explain that they're stronger together, that the chemistry is what makes them special. They know he'll probably go solo eventually, whether the records sell or not, but they're not ready to lose him. Not like this. Felipe won't budge. The group refuses to change the name. So Felipe walks. He hires Alan Thicke as his manager. Yes, that Alan Thicke, the actor from Growing Pains, Robin Thicke's father, a well-known TV-themed songwriter who penned the songs for Different Strokes and The Facts of Life. Felipe signs a solo deal with Cotillion Records, a subsidiary of Atlantic. In 1977, Felipe releases Starting All Over, his debut solo album. It's supposed to be his moment, his big break. The world is waiting to see what Philippe Wynne can do on his own. But the album flops. Badly. It doesn't chart, it doesn't sell, and Cotillion Records drops him. Just like that, the Golden Voice is unemployed. But Felipe isn't done. He reconnects with Bootsy Collins and George Clinton. Bootsy has a group called Sweatband, and they bring Felipe in for a feature on Not Just Knee Deep. The song goes #1 on the R&B charts. It's a massive hit. You know it. De La Soul sampled it years later for Me, Myself, and I, but even that success isn't enough to revive Felipe's solo career. In 1980, he signs with George Clinton's Uncle Jam Records and releases Windjamming, another flop. The label lets him out of his contract. In 1983, he tries one last time. He signs with Sugar Hill Records and releases Philippe Wynne, his third and final solo album. It goes nowhere. The man who made millions scream his name with the Spinners can't seem to find his footing alone. It's heartbreaking, it's frustrating, and it's about to get much, much worse. July 13th, 1984, Friday the 13th, Oakland, California, Ivy's nightclub. Felipe is on the road promoting his latest album. The venue is packed with about 200 fans. Felipe takes the stage, and he's electric, full of energy, smiling, dancing, singing his heart out. After each song, he walks into the audience shaking hands, thanking people for their love. The crowd gives him standing ovation after standing ovation. They keep chanting for more. Encore, encore, encore. Felipe obliges. He comes back out again and again. On his third encore, he's performing Love Don't Love Nobody, that Quiet Storm classic, the song his mother loves. He's walking through the crowd, singing, soaking in the adoration. And then, without warning, he drops the microphone. His body goes limp. He collapses to the floor. The crowd screams. A nurse in the audience rushes over. Police officers who happen to be at the show try to help. Fans are crying. Chaos erupts. They rush him to the hospital. 1 hour later, Felipe Wynne is pronounced dead. Fatal heart attack. He was 43 years old. 43. Here's the part that breaks your heart. Only 8 people attended his funeral. 8. This man who sold millions of records, who performed in front of thousands, who had a voice that defined a decade. 8 people. His brother Michael revealed in an interview that Felipe had been considering a return to gospel music at the end of his career. He wanted to go back to his roots, back to the church, but he never got the chance. Felipe had 2 sons, Alvarez and Emmanuel, and their stories are just as tragic. In 1999, Alvarez was killed in a drive-by shooting in Compton. 1 year later, in 2000, Emmanuel drowned while trying to save a drowning man. He succeeded. The man lived, but Emmanuel didn't make it. For his heroism, Emmanuel was posthumously awarded the Carnegie Medal. 2 sons, both gone. The Wynne family tree cut down before its time. The Spinners continue to tour to this day, performing with new members. Only one original member remains, Henry Fambro. In 1999, they were inducted into the Vocal Group Hall of Fame. In 1976, they received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, but they're still denied entry into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. 19 R&B top 10 hits, second only to the Jackson 5. Over 60 years together, and yet the Hall refuses to recognize them. Felipe Wynne was a man who survived an orphanage, who lied his way into the military at 15, who sang with Otis Redding and James Brown, who helped create the Philly soul sound, who had a voice that nobody could duplicate. But he was also a man who left security for solo stardom and never found it. a man who died on stage doing what he loved, a man whose legacy lives on in every falsetto you hear in R&B today. So here's the question. If Felipe had stayed with the Spinners, would he still be alive? Would his sons have had a different fate? Would his name be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you never want to miss stories like this, stories of forgotten legends who changed music forever, subscribe to Legends Underrated today, because Philippe Wynne deserves to be remembered, not as the man who died on stage, but as the man whose voice will never die.